You don't understand what mass is. And if you don't understand mass, you can't understand the most famous equation in physics, E equals mc². I know that sounds ridiculous. You're sitting in a chair right now. You can feel your weight. You can pick up objects and feel how heavy they are. Mass is the most obvious thing in the universe. It's stuff. It's what things are made of. Except it isn't. And I can prove it to you in about 30 seconds. Clench your fist. Right now. Squeeze it tight. Harder. Until your knuckles go white and you feel the tension in your fingers. Now here's what just happened. And this is going to sound insane, but it's measurably, verifiably true. You just made your hand heavier. Not sort of heavier. Not metaphorically heavier. Actually heavier. You added mass to your hand by squeezing it. The amount is tiny, about a trillionth of a gram. But it's real. If you had a scale sensitive enough, you could measure it. How? Because when you compressed the tissues in your hand, you added elastic potential energy to the molecular bonds. And energy, pure energy, has weight. Energy has inertia. Energy has mass. You created mass out of nothing but the work of your muscles. Now, if that makes absolutely no sense to you, if your brain is rejecting that idea completely, good. Because everything you think you know about mass is wrong. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly where your intuition breaks, why it breaks, and what the universe actually looks like when you stop trusting your feelings and start trusting the measurements. Let's begin with the lie you've been carrying your whole life. Most people, probably you included, think of mass like this. Mass is content. It's stuff inside things, like sand in a bag. The bag is heavy because it's full of something. Open the bag, pour out the sand. Now it's lighter. The mass was stored inside, waiting to be removed. This is the model we all build as children. It's intuitive, it's simple, it makes perfect sense, and it is completely, utterly, devastatingly wrong. But you don't know it's wrong because you live at the wrong scale. You're too big, too slow. You experience the universe through a narrow window, and everything you see through that window confirms the lie. So let me show you where the lie breaks down. And I'm going to do it using something you think you understand. A proton. Think of something solid. A rock. A piece of metal. Your own body. Now ask yourself a simple question. Where is the mass? You probably think it's distributed throughout the object. It's in the atoms. Okay, zoom in. Look at one atom. Where is the mass there? In the nucleus? In the protons and neutrons? Good. Keep going. A proton is made of 3 quarks, fundamental particles, the smallest things we know of. So the mass must be in the quarks, right? They're the building blocks, the sand grains in the bag. Here's where your brain is about to break. Add up the mass of those 3 quarks. You get about 1% of the proton's total mass. 1%. The other, 99%, the overwhelming majority of what makes a proton heavy, is not in the quarks. Now, this isn't a rounding error. This isn't dark matter inside protons or some missing ingredient we haven't discovered yet. The mass is genuinely, truly, measurably not stored in the parts. So where the hell is it? Take a moment and really sit with that question. Because this is where most people's intuition just stops working. You've been told your whole life that mass is a property of particles, that things have mass because they're made of matter, that if you zoomed in far enough, you'd find the fundamental stuff that carries all the weight. But 99% of the mass in a proton, 99% of your mass, isn't in any particle at all. So where is it? Here's the answer, and it's going to sound like word games at first, but stick with me. The mass is in the energy. Inside a proton, those 3 quarks are not sitting still. They're not gently floating around like boats on a pond. They are screaming, moving at 99.9% of the speed of light, trapped inside a space smaller than you can possibly imagine, bouncing off walls made of force fields called gluon fields. Those gluon fields pulse. They fluctuate. They carry enormous amounts of energy. And that energy, the kinetic energy of the quarks, plus the field energy of the gluons, has inertia. It resists when you try to push it. It bends space-time. It pulls on other objects with gravity. It does everything mass does, because it is mass. Now I need you to pause for a second and really absorb what I just said, because this is the single most important idea in modern physics, and it gets glossed over in every pop science explanation you've ever heard. Mass is not a substance. Mass is not a thing particles have, like color or size. Mass is a behavior. It's what energy does when it gets trapped in a confined space and starts moving in complicated patterns. When physicists say E equals mc², they're not saying you can turn mass into energy like you're exchanging currency. They're saying mass and energy are the same thing. They're not two different substances that can transform into each other. They're one substance, viewed from different angles. Mass is just energy that's sitting still. Or more accurately, energy that's trapped in a box, bouncing around so fast in so many directions that it averages to sitting still. Let me give you an image that might help. Imagine you're standing in a dark room. You can't see anything, but you can hear something buzzing. A swarm of bees, maybe 1,000 of them, all trapped inside a glass jar sitting on a table. Each individual bee is flying fast, darting, chaotic, furious motion in every direction. But the jar itself, the jar is sitting perfectly still. Now try to push the jar. You feel resistance, not because the jar is heavy, it's just empty glass, but because the bees inside are slamming into the walls thousands of times per second. Their motion, even though it's random, even though it cancels out, creates pressure. The jar resists being moved because of the kinetic energy trapped inside it. That's what a proton is. 3 quarks, buzzing around at near light speed, held together by gluon fields. The quarks are the bees. The fields are the glass. And the resistance you feel when you try to push the proton, that inertia, that weight, is the mass. You are not made of matter. You are made of trapped motion. Now, if that's true, if mass really is just bound energy, then something very strange should be possible. Let me give you a thought experiment. Imagine I hand you a perfect box, massless, completely empty, weighs nothing. Now I put a single photon of light inside that box and seal it shut. Light has no mass. Everyone knows this. Photons are pure energy, flying through space at light speed, completely weightless. So the box should still weigh nothing, right? Wrong. The box is now heavier. Not by much, an absurdly tiny amount, but measurably heavier. Why? Because that photon is now bouncing around inside the box. Every time it hits a wall, it exerts a tiny bit of pressure. And if you try to push the box, to accelerate it, that photon pushes back through the walls. The energy of the photon, which was flying free through space with zero inertia, is now confined. And confined energy behaves exactly like mass. You didn't convert the photon into mass. The photon is still light, still moving at light speed inside the box. But the system, the box plus the photon, now has inertia. It has weight. You created mass by trapping energy. Let me give you another example, one you can almost feel. Take a spring, a regular metal spring, like the kind you'd find inside a pen. Hold it in your hand. Now compress it. Squeeze it down. You've just added energy to the spring, elastic potential energy stored in the compressed metal. Now, and this is the part that breaks most people, weigh the spring. It is heavier, not by much, an impossibly small amount, but if you had a scale sensitive enough, you could measure it. The energy you added to the spring by compressing it gave the spring more inertia, more resistance to acceleration, more gravitational pull. You added energy, so you added mass. This is not a metaphor. This is not like adding mass. You actually added mass. The compressed spring has measurably more mass than the relaxed spring. Because mass is not a substance. Mass is the inertia of bound energy. Now let me push this even further, because I want you to feel how deeply strange this is. You can do the same thing with heat. Take a sealed box, any box, heat it up. The box is now heavier. Why? Because thermal energy, the random jittering of atoms inside, has inertia. It contributes to the total mass of the system. A cup of hot coffee is measurably heavier than a cup of cold coffee. Not because steam evaporated, not because you added liquid, because heat has weight. Every time you warm something up, you add mass to it. Every time something cools down, it loses mass. Mass is not conserved. Energy is conserved, and since mass is energy, we have to stop treating mass as a fundamental substance and start treating it as a bookkeeping label for how much trapped energy a system contains. Let's take a breath here for a second, because I know what you're feeling right now. You're feeling like the ground just shifted under your feet, like someone just told you that up is down, or that the color blue doesn't exist. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm telling you. The model you've been using your whole life, the mass is stuff model, doesn't work. It never worked. It was just a convenient approximation that happened to be good enough for everyday life. But now we're going deeper. We're looking at what the universe actually is, not just how it appears to your senses. And what the universe actually is energy. Just energy, moving in different patterns. Some patterns are stable enough to persist. We call those patterns particles. And when those particles are confined, when their energy is trapped, we experience that confinement as mass. You are not made of particles that have mass. You are made of energy patterns that exhibit mass because they're trapped in stable configurations. Let me show you just how much energy we're talking about. Your body mass is roughly 70 kilograms. Let's round it to make the math easy. Now, Einstein's equation, E equals mc², tells us how much energy that mass represents. E is energy, m is mass, c is the speed of light. The speed of light is 300 million meters per second. So c², the speed of light times itself, is 90 quadrillion. That's a 9 with 16 zeros after it. What this means is that every kilogram of mass corresponds to 90 quadrillion joules of energy. Your 70 kilogram body contains 6.3 quintillion joules of energy. To put that in perspective, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima released about 63 trillion joules. Your body contains the energy equivalent of 100 million Hiroshimas. Not because you ate a lot of food, not because you stored energy, but because you are energy, bound, compressed, frozen into a temporary stable form. Every person you've ever met is a walking star, held together only by the fact that nature doesn't have an easy way to untie the knot. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a fun number, but it's not like I can actually access that energy. It's locked away somehow. And you're right, it is locked away, but not because there's some vault or container keeping it separate. It's locked away because the energy is you. It's not stored in your atoms. It is your atoms. Let me explain what I mean. When an electron meets its antimatter twin, a positron, they touch. And in that instant, both particles vanish. Completely. Gone. What's left? 2 photons. 2 beams of light, flying off in opposite directions at light speed. The particles disappeared. The mass disappeared, but the energy remained. You might say, so the mass turned into energy. But that's still the wrong picture. The mass was always energy. It was just trapped. Locked in a stable pattern we call an electron. When that pattern broke, when electron met positron, the energy was freed. It stopped being confined, so it stopped having inertia. It stopped behaving like a particle with mass. It became light. Nothing was converted. The energy just unfolded. Here's where it gets even stranger. Right now, in your body, particles are moving at 99.9% of the speed of light. Not metaphorically, not on average. Right now, this very second, the quarks inside the protons in your bones, in your blood, in the neurons firing in your brain, they are screaming around at near light speed, trapped in spaces billions of times smaller than the width of a human hair. You are sitting still. But the fundamental parts of you are moving faster than anything you will ever experience in your entire life. You are a traffic jam of light-speed particles. And the only reason you feel still, the only reason you have weight and solidity and presence is because all that motion is trapped. It cancels out. It averages to zero. But it's there, buzzing, vibrating, raging. You are not calm. You are not inert. You are a frozen explosion held together by geometry. Let's come back to something concrete for a moment. Back to something you can hold in your hand. Go back to that spring, the one you compressed earlier. When you squeezed it, you added potential energy. And that energy, tiny, invisible, barely measurable, added mass to the spring. But think about what that actually means. It means mass is not conserved. If I take that compressed spring and let it go, if I release the energy, the spring becomes lighter again. The mass disappears. Where did it go? Nowhere. It was never there in the first place. It was just a label we put on the inertia of the trapped energy. When the energy was released, when the spring relaxed, the inertia decreased. So the mass decreased. Mass is not a substance you can pour out of a container. Mass is a property of energy configurations. And when the configuration changes, the mass changes. This is why physicists stopped talking about conservation of mass 100 years ago. Mass is not conserved, energy is conserved, and since mass is just a form of energy, we have to think of them as the same thing. E equals mc² isn't a formula for turning one thing into another. It's a statement of identity. Mass is energy. Energy is mass. They're the same word in different languages. Now, let me give you one more image. One more way of thinking about this that might help it all click into place. Imagine the universe as an infinite ocean. The water is pure energy, flowing freely in all directions at the speed of light. But here and there, the water gets caught. A whirlpool forms. The water starts spinning in place, trapped in a loop. It's still water, still made of the same substance as the ocean. But now it has structure. It has persistence. It resists being pushed. That whirlpool is a particle. That whirlpool is mass. You are not separate from the ocean. You are the ocean, temporarily swirling into form. And when you die, when the pattern breaks, the whirlpool dissolves. The water flows free again. Nothing is lost. It just stops being you. Let me ask you a question. If mass is just trapped energy, why does it feel so different? Why does energy seem light, ephemeral? A beam of sunlight on your face, a radio wave passing invisibly through your body, while mass seems solid, permanent, the ground under your feet, the weight of your own body. The answer is confinement. Free energy moves at the speed of light. It spreads out. It dilutes. You can't grab it. You can't hold it. But when energy gets trapped, when it's bouncing around inside a proton or locked in the bonds between atoms, it slows down on average. Not because the individual parts are moving slowly. The quarks are still screaming at 99.9% of light speed, but they're moving in circles, in random directions. They cancel out. The system sits still, even though the parts are on fire. And when a system sits still, it has inertia. It resists being moved. That resistance, that stubbornness, is what you feel as mass, as weight, as solidity. You are not solid. You are a storm moving so fast in so many directions that it averages to stillness. Now let's talk about what this means. Practically, emotionally, personally. When you look at your hand, right now, look at your hand. You see skin, flesh, bone. You think, this is me. This is matter. This is real. But zoom in. Look at the atoms. Look at the protons. Look at the quarks. You're not looking at stuff. You're looking at knots in an energy field. Stable patterns that have been holding their shape for billions of years. Every carbon atom in your body was forged inside a star. Not came from a star. Was forged. Created under unimaginable heat and pressure as light-speed particles locked into a stable pattern we call carbon. That carbon floated through space for millions of years. Cold, inert, waiting. Then it fell to Earth. It joined the ocean. It was absorbed by algae, eaten by fish, eaten by something bigger. It cycled through the biosphere for eons, and eventually, through a chain of improbable events, it ended up in you. But here's the thing. It was never built. It was never assembled from parts. It was condensed. Energy that was flying freely through the cosmos at light speed got caught, trapped, bound into a pattern. And now that pattern is sitting in your body, listening to these words, thinking about itself. You are not made of ancient particles. You are made of ancient energy, shaped into temporary form. And here's the most beautiful, most terrifying part. One day, the pattern will break. Not all at once, not in a flash of light, but slowly, gently, through decay, through chemistry, through the patient, inexorable work of entropy. Your body will stop maintaining the pattern. The molecular bonds will weaken. The cells will stop repairing themselves. The knots will begin to untie. And the energy, your energy, will be released. Not violently, not dramatically, just released. As heat, as motion, as the vibration of atoms in the soil, as the metabolic energy of bacteria breaking down tissue, as the chemical potential of molecules rejoining the carbon cycle. And that energy will flow back into the ocean. It will spread out. It will become part of something else. A tree, a worm, a breath of wind, another person, 100 years from now. You were never a thing. You were always a process. A wave passing through the fabric of reality, a whirlpool in the ocean of energy. And when the whirlpool dissolves, the ocean remains. E equals mc² is not a formula for bombs. It's not even really a formula at all, in the sense of a recipe for doing something. It's a statement about identity, about what the universe fundamentally is. Mass is energy. Energy is mass. Not similar, not analogous, not convertible into each other. The same thing. When you stand on a scale, you're not measuring matter. You're measuring the inertia of bound energy. When you feel your own weight, you're not feeling substance. You're feeling resistance, the stubbornness of energy patterns that refuse to break. When you look in the mirror, you're not seeing a collection of atoms. You're seeing a temporary sculpture made of light, held together by forces you can't see, sustained by motion you can't feel. You are not solid. You are not separate. You are not a thing. You are energy, frozen into form for a brief, improbable moment. So go back to that exercise we started with. Clench your fist one more time. Feel that tension, that pressure, that resistance. That's not just your muscles working. That's not just tissue compressing. That's mass, real, measurable, additional mass that wasn't there a second ago. You just created it by doing work, by adding energy to a system. And when you let go, when you relax your hand, that mass will vanish. Because mass is not a substance you own. It's not a thing you possess. It's a pattern you wear, a configuration of energy that happens to be stable enough to last. And patterns, like all things in this universe, are temporary. The universe is not made of stuff. It's made of motion, bound motion, trapped motion, motion that forgot how to stop. And you are what happens when that motion looks at itself and wonders why. That's what E equals mc. Squared really means not destruction, not power, not bombs. Identity. You are energy, and energy never dies.